How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Smith, and today I'm here with an episode dedicated to crafting your career brand or your professional brand. Now, I know that professional branding is kind of a buzz term, but regardless of what we call it, it is an important piece of career planning, especially when it comes to making a career change, differentiating yourself, and standing out. So your professional brand is really how you showcase your talent. It highlights who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. When it comes down to it, the best way to stand out is to be yourself. There is no one else out there like you. And I'll tell you, one big misconception about defining your professional brand is that a lot of people relate it to their job title, when in reality, your job title does not make you unique. Your job title doesn't tell people what you stand for. Your job title won't even let somebody know where you stand in terms of an organization hierarchy. Not to mention, a VP at one company is completely different from a VP at another company. Goldie Chan is a professional brand expert, and she contributes to a bunch of business articles that I've seen. And there was a quote that I pulled out that I really liked, and it says that creating the right career brand is the difference between who are you and thank you for being here in your career. So, what do you want to be known for? My guess, it's not simply your job title. So today, we're going to talk through what your professional brand is. I'm going to share some ideas on how you can start to think about defining your professional brand. Then we want to talk about how to leverage it across your marketing materials, specifically in a job search. We will walk through the importance of consistency. And then as a bonus, I'm going to talk to you about how to elevate your brand. So this is specifically for those of you who are ready to kind of take it to the next level and be seen as a leader in your function or industry. So let's get to it. For most of us, myself included, defining who we are and what we stand for is hard. And it makes sense because we are in our own heads all the time. But just like a good business and marketing strategy, you have to understand what makes you valuable and what differentiates you. So all of this starts with defining your career brand. Carly Lyon is a brand expert that I've partnered with, and she defines your professional brand as a combination of how you see yourself and how others see you. She says it's the way in which you are recognized and remembered, and that it's the result of consciously bringing together your own unique qualities and skills, bringing all of those together for purpose, which for some of you, that purpose might be to make a career change. For others, that might be to elevate you as a leader, whatever you are aiming towards in your career. So every time someone interacts with you, whether that's online or talking to you, every single time is an opportunity to showcase your career brand. And all of your experiences make you well-rounded, and companies want to hear about this. They want to know what has shaped you into who you are today. So, what do you stand for? This is a big question. It's not something that can be answered in 5 minutes. It takes some time. So I want to talk through some ideas that can help you start to get the wheels turning here. So first, you could check in with your core and lifestyle values. What are those non-negotiables and why? You could start to think about how you want to make an impact or what's really interesting to you within your career. Talk about what type of work generates your energy, or start to think about really the tasks within your day-to-day that you love doing. And then see if there's a connection or a thread that ties all that together. Maybe you're in a role where you're leading people. And if you're in a role where you're a people manager, have you taken the time to define your leadership style or your leadership philosophy? All of that could be part of your brand. Another idea to think about this is to start with the end in mind. So if you're making a change, you can visualize yourself in this ultimate version of your future self. And then start to think about, what do I look like in this new version of myself? How do I spend my day? Who is in my professional network? What do I sound like? What am I achieving? All of these are really good questions to start to think about defining your brand. Another way to think about this, and this is kind of one of my favorite ways to support beloveds in my community when we're doing this work, is to think about your retirement party. So we're zooming forward to your retirement party, and your friends and family are all gathering to celebrate you and your career. So what are your colleagues celebrating about you? What are your accomplishments? What are you most proud of when you think about your retirement party? That can be a really fun way to reflect and see what comes up. If you're super stuck on this, you might consider phoning a friend or two for help. So you could ask somebody, maybe 5 words or less that describe you. You could check in with some of your colleagues and ask how they would describe you and your work style. All of these inquiries will support you when defining your brand. Again, it takes time. This is not something that can be done sitting at your computer for 30 minutes. It's time and thought and reflection and iteration. So once you do have an idea of what you stand for or what you want to be known for, it's time to clearly articulate your brand so it resonates with other people. And the first step in clearly articulating your brand is understanding that words matter. Every word should feel good to you. So are the words that you use to describe yourself dull and overused, or do they make you want to jump in and learn more? So start thinking about words, get a list, start to analyze them. What are the similarities? What words resonate with you? Maybe what words don't? Another way to approach this, if you're stuck with finding words, is to get to know some of the companies that you're interested in working with. So you could take a look at the people that work at those companies, take a look at their LinkedIn profiles, or you could look at their company websites or their company social media and start to see what words they use to describe the people and the culture in the company. And if those words resonate with you, then you can use them in your professional brand. So once you understand your brand words and how you want to describe yourself, from there, you want to start bringing together a career story about who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. So you can use these words and your themes from your brand to craft, a pretty long narrative if you wanted to around your overarching career story. And then you can shorten that up into something like an elevator pitch. So I'll share an example of what that kind of short, sharp elevator pitch might sound like. I'm going to share an example for myself, and then I'll share an example for somebody that I worked with. So words for me that I like to use to describe my work and my career are heart-based, happy and healthy. I like the word cultivate, body, mind, spirit, or what I like to say, nourish to flourish. And the other thing is, I want to make sure that people know as a career coach, I have that insider experience as an HR leader and a recruiter. So my overarching story, or that short, sharp elevator pitch, might sound something like this. My name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy career. As a former HR leader turned career coach, I'm on a mission to support heart-based, career-minded professionals to become clear about who they are and how to cultivate a career that fits. So hopefully in that you could hear my brand words in that short intro, and it immediately lets you know who I am, where I've been, and what I do. If you're making a career change, you might consider adding a sentence or two at the end to let people know what you're looking for. So this takes all the guesswork out of it for someone who encounters you. So for example, I was working with someone who was making a career change from HR operations into project management. So their story sounded something like this. I love solving complex HR and business challenges and leveraging technology to modernize outdated processes and systems. As an HR expert, I have a proven track record of spearheading successful human capital systems implementations from the ground up. Streamlining processes and amplifying business goals are my strengths. Currently, I'm excited to leverage my HR operations experience and move into a role as a project manager in the healthcare industry. So in that short and sharp story, you heard what they love to do for work. They identified their transferable skills, so what they're really good at as it's related to being a project manager. And then lastly, they shared exactly what they're looking for. So if someone is reading or listening to them, it really just takes all of that guesswork out of it and really presents them as a highly valuable hire and somebody that they would want to continue a conversation with. So once you've defined your brand, it's time to showcase it in places that others may come in contact with you. So for the purpose of making a career change, this might be your resume. So your headline and your profile section of your resume is a great place to start to share your story. Your LinkedIn profile, specifically your headline or your about section. When you talk about yourself or introduce yourself to somebody new, you can start using your brand words and these themes to introduce yourself. Some of you might have a website depending on what you do. Maybe you are a writer and you use Twitter as a social platform. So that would be another place people might encounter you, and you want to make sure that you're sharing those brand words and themes. So it's basically every single time someone comes into contact with you, you want to make sure you're telling a story. The trick here is to make sure you're telling a consistent story. And I want to share a quick parallel for talking about the importance of consistency. So this is all related to party planning. Now, I have to tell you, I am the worst party planner. So I would much rather have just, a fun, spontaneous backyard barbecue than plan something extravagant. But nonetheless, I found that this is a good example that seems to resonate. So if you're planning a party and you wish to have a theme, you are probably going to pick one theme. So maybe that's a laid back backyard barbecue, or perhaps something a little bit more extravagant like a 70s disco party. But can you imagine combining both of those themes into one party? You might end up with some great stories and probably even better photos, although it won't make much sense and will likely cause confusion for your guests. The same thing for a recruiter who has your resume and your LinkedIn profile on their screen. So when I was a recruiter, I used to get somebody's resume, and the first thing I would do was click into LinkedIn to see this person side by side. So if their resume says that they're a social media manager, and then I open up LinkedIn and it says, video game industry guru, creative blogger, and a digital specialist, I'm probably going to be confused. It doesn't tell a super consistent story. So if your story isn't consistent, people won't know what to do with you, basically. So you want to make sure you're defining your career story, thinking about those words, and then maintaining consistency across any of the platforms that somebody will come in contact with you. So far, we've talked about how to define your career brand by either zooming forward to your retirement party or phoning a friend to ask how they would define you and your work style. We talked about being thoughtful about the words that you use to define your career brand. I shared a couple examples of how that short and sharp story might come together for you. And we've talked about the importance of consistency. So now for a bonus. If you are working in the professional world, you might consider using social media, and I'm specifically going to talk about LinkedIn here, to elevate your presence and your professional brand across the platform. So using LinkedIn to share your opinion can help you start to position yourself as a leader within a function or an industry. Now, I get that not everybody is comfortable doing this. Although if you are comfortable, it is a fantastic way to show up and start conversations and ultimately get noticed if you are in a career change or a job search. So to do this, you want to pick 3 to 5 topics that you love to talk about. Ideally, if you are making a change, these topics are related to either the function or the industry that you're moving into. And then what happens is when you start talking about the same things on a consistent basis, you become memorable and people will expect to hear from you about those topics. So a couple examples here. So my topics are heart-based career changes, practical tips in the job search process, and I like to talk about well-being and mindset, which is my Nourish to Flourish. So if I started talking about computer coding and sales tactics, people would probably be just super confused. So you can see that consistency is really critical. And I'll tell you, I see people derail this by being random in what they talk about all the time. So you want to make sure that you're keeping it consistent. Some ideas of things that you might want to talk about. So if you've got your ideal role or your ideal industry in mind, you could start to share and talk about hot topics related to that industry. You could provide help to people who are trying to build skills that you've perfected. You could share some how-to posts or lists, like the top 5 books in a particular field that you're interested in. All of these are great ideas to start to showcase your brand. I also want to say that you don't necessarily have to create your own content. So you can reshare posts that you find interesting. And then you can tag the author for a shout out and start to make friends in a new industry or a function. You could share an article that somebody else wrote that resonated with you and then add 1 or 2 sentences as to why you're sharing it. So that starts to allow people to know what your opinion is about a particular article. You could try posing a question and see if that starts a conversation. And again, to meet new professionals in an industry or a function that you're moving into. But most importantly here, I want you to do what's comfortable for you. I recognize that not everybody is comfortable doing this, and you don't have to. These are just some ideas in case you're interested in giving it a try. But ultimately, do what's comfortable for you and be yourself. So in summary, your career brand is the way in which you are recognized and remembered. Defining your unique brand starts with reflection about who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. The first step in clearly articulating your brand is to ensure that every single word you use to describe you feels good to you. And then in terms of your career, you might consider showcasing your brand on your resume, your cover letter, on your LinkedIn profile, when you introduce yourself to somebody. But the most important piece is to make sure that you are consistent when showcasing your brand across your marketing materials. The idea here is that every single time someone interacts with you, it's going to be an opportunity to know who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. There's not going to be any guesswork. Just like a good business and marketing strategy, you must understand what makes you valuable, what differentiates you, and why somebody would hire you. All of this starts with your career brand. So that's all for today, my friends. I will be back next week with an episode dedicated to interview prep. Specifically, 3 mistakes I've seen the majority of job seekers make in the process. So I've interviewed thousands of people, from interns to executives, and interview prep is one of my favorite ways to support job seekers. So I'm going to share some of the mistakes I've seen over the years, and I can't wait to talk with you about it. In the meantime, if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you take a moment to share it with someone who might find it helpful. As always, for detailed show notes, please visit the Flourish Careers blog. Talk to you next time.